What is up, good people? As always, thank you for stopping by at the Real Counselor's Corner. If you're not doing so, make sure you get all the way down by following me on all social platforms, YouTube, Facebook, IG, Twitter. So if you're not doing that, do yourself a solid. And YouTube, even if you don't subscribe, go by, watch the videos. I think what I'm going to start doing is posting snippets on Facebook and then putting the full length on YouTube. Hopefully I can get y'all to travel over there, because if you roll with your boy, then you're going to go wherever I go. Because what I'm saying, I think is useful. So with all that being said, I'm about to get into something. I'm about to get into my educational bag, my counseling bag. And before I do that, I want to preface it by saying that here at the Real Counselor's Corner, like, this is totally me. Everything that I speak here, or anything that I do under the umbrella of at the Real Counselor's Corner is all me. It has nothing to do with my profession and where I work. Two totally separate things. So when I get on here and I talk about things relating to my profession, I'm not necessarily speaking on behalf of where I work. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a certified counselor, and as a professional, I have the right to my own professional opinion. So that's what that is. So with all that being said, I'm going to get into something today relating to special education services. And if it applies to you, it's very useful, and I hope you take it and apply it, however you need to make your situation whatever you want it to be. And if it doesn't apply to you right now, take it, file it, and then your job is to share it with somebody if that situation arises. You never know. I'm from one to learn everything you can, so when the situation arises, hey, you got something for everything. But with all that being said, I'm gonna get into I'm gonna get into a disability that is recognized under the umbrella of special education. Where I'm at, it's referred to as ECE, Exceptional Child Education. And what that basically is, it's for students that have met criteria to receive additional support that is individualized based on their needs. In some cases, they may need a diagnosis. In some cases, it's based on data that's collected by teachers. Some cases, it's based on academic data and academic performance. Either way, it all boils down to a series of items that they put together to determine this student has met criteria to receive special education. So the label I want to talk about today is a label that I've witnessed. How do I say this? I want to talk about a label today that I believe has been detrimental to boys, young men, however you want to call them. And of course, my experience only extends from pre-K to 8th grade. So, the things that I'm saying, these are things that I've witnessed, through that particular role group. High school is a little different, but I'm going to talk about one of those labels, and it's called emotional behavior disorder, also called EBD. And what EBD basically is, it's a category or a label that's given to a student that has exhibited behaviors that lead one to believe that they have a hard time conducting themselves in a general classroom setting all day. If a student is found eligible to receive services under EBD, they can receive them in a couple different ways. They can receive them in a collaborative setting, which means a teacher comes into the classroom and works with them in that setting, the general classroom with all the other kids. It can be a resource setting, which means the student leaves the general education, the regular class, and they go to a smaller group, cap size, 10 kids in most cases, I think in all cases. So that's resource. And then they have what's called self-contained. Now, of those three, what I want to talk about today is the self-contained piece. So in order for a student to be considered in a self-contained class, that means they spend 80% of their day in one class. So if a student is in one room all day, and let's say they go out for gym or music or, related arts, they would be considered self-contained because they are contained within a room for at least 80% of the day. So whenever a student qualifies for ECE, Exceptional Child Education, they receive a federal document that's called an IEP, which is an individualized education plan. So in this plan, it basically notates what the student struggles are, what the goals are, how the data is going to be tracked, because the ultimate goal is for the student to learn skills where they no longer need this service. That's the ultimate goal. Should not be used as a crutch. It should not be a hindrance for the students, or should not hinder the students from learning the skills they need, to move beyond this quote unquote label. So the ultimate goal is for the student to exit out of ECE. So the reason I want to talk about EBD is because I know firsthand, and remember when I say firsthand, I'm speaking on my experience, meaning I've witnessed it, not something I've read, not something someone told me. I've witnessed this. So the things I speak on are 100% facts. So with EBD, I'm going to talk about the self-contained portion of EBD. So self-contained, like I said, is they spend 80%, in a lot of cases, the full day in one room. This is the most restrictive of all the services. I gave you 3: collaborative, resource, and then self-contained. Collaborative is the least restrictive because the student is actually in their classroom, in the general education environment. A teacher comes in and assists them in there. So the determination in regards to how the services are delivered is based on the student's needs. So back to what I was saying with EBD. So when a student is placed in EBD self-contained, they remain in one class all day, at least 80%. So mind you, these students are in class with students that have the same behavior concerns. Okay, so that's one thing. So that means there's no role models in there in most cases. And the behaviors that they're exhibiting, there are other people, sometimes 9 other kids that exhibit the same behaviors. All right, so this is once they're receiving services, and the delivery, the format for the delivery of services is self-contained. So that's one thing. They're in a classroom, no role models. Backtrack. In order for a student to be found eligible for EBD, and this is the part I really want you to understand as a parent, and as an advocate, what I'm saying, of children, a student is found eligible for EBD based on a couple things, but the most important thing is data. So what happens is a student exhibits a behavior problem. Okay, a behavior problem that has occurred constantly. And the way the process is supposed to go, there's supposed to be several interventions that are put in place before this student is even referred to receive special education services. So if a student is exhibiting behavior problems, before they talk about let's refer him to special ed, they should be doing things like providing him time throughout the day, to take a break if need be. Finding someone that he has a great rapport with, a good relationship in the building that he can speak with, give him strategies that can help him calm down when he appears to start getting angry. So these things are supposed to occur before you even start talking about special education. So if the process is followed how it should be, while these interventions are occurring, people are collecting data. So they're going to say, well, so-and-so, student A, when given the opportunity to correct his behavior, he corrected it individually 8 out of 10 times, and this is just me throwing stuff in the air. But they're collecting data for at least, I think it's 6 weeks, might be 12. I want to say 6. But at the end of this data collection, what they do is they look at the data. All right. They get input from the teachers. They get input from a committee of folks in a lot of cases. And then they use that to determine if a student has a emotional behavior disorder. So mind you, I didn't mention anything about a doctor. I didn't mention anything about a psychologist. There's no diagnosis that's needed. Only thing that's needed is data that supports that this student is exhibiting behaviors that are disruptive, sometimes aggressive, so on and so forth. So backtrack, I'll add on to that. There's another document when a student is being looked at for emotional behavior disorder, those services. And it's called a functional behavior assessment, also known as FBA. So the purpose of the FBA is to map out a plan that is going to allow the student to correct their behavior. So the functional behavior assessment is going to tell us what the behavior problems are, because this is where we collect the data. This is where, you get information from, all the stakeholders involved. But that document there is used to collect data. And then the functional behavior assessment is used to write what's called a BIP. Remember I said IEP is an individualized education plan. Students that receive services under EBD, they have the IEP, and then they have something called a BIP, which is a behavior intervention plan. And what that is it's a document that outlines the behaviors that the student typically will exhibit, and then it outlines a plan for the adults to follow when those behaviors are exhibited. And the purpose is not to punish the student for those behaviors, but to teach them replacement behaviors. So let's say, cussing, language is a student's issue. This behavior intervention plan may allow him an inappropriate outburst, before he gets in any trouble. He might get a warning. The purpose is to help them correct the behavior. That's the purpose of the BIP. But what happens with a lot of students that end up in EBD self-contained is that they never exit out. And I am telling you this with 100% certainty. In my 15 plus years in counseling, meaning dealing with special education, seeing kids go into EBD, self-contained, I've never seen a kid totally exit. I've never seen a kid totally get out of EBD. Meaning I've watched kids, go through middle school with this label, which means they're not learning the skills to, get beyond this label. All right. I've seen it in elementary. I've seen kids diagnosed with this label and they take it all the way to middle school. So that tells us a couple things. One, it tells us that either the strategies that are being used are not the correct strategies. All right. Or the student has become so accustomed to the assistance of that document that they're not even trying to correct the behavior. I'll give you an example of that. Another label under ECE is SLD, which is specific learning disability. This is where reading and math and those things fall under. So a lot of students, not a lot, I shouldn't say that. Some students that in the early years of their education, third grade-ish, they start receiving the service of a reader, meaning whenever there's a test, there's someone that has to read for them. And let me explain something. There are places that the adult must read for the child. Like, they don't go to the child and say, do you want me to read for you? The plan says they must read for the child. So think about that. What that does is, yes, it allows the child to do better on the assessment because they're able to, understand what they're being asked. But what it does, in a lot of cases, it hinders the student from even learning to read in the first place. That's why they end up with that IEP for years and years and years, because they become accustomed to those services, and it's now, why should I learn to read? And you're going to read for me. That's another no. Back to EBD. So, never seen a kid exit. The only time I've seen a kid get out of EBD is when I started working at the W.E.B. Du Bois Academy, and it's because we do not believe that a student should be self-contained under the label of EBD. And when I say we, once again, I'm speaking of me. I work there. That's one of the things I'm responsible for. The team that I work with, we're all on the same page, so I can say that in confidence. We feel that we can put things in place that will allow students that have exhibited behavior issues to still get the middle school experience like every other child and the support they need to overcome those issues. Because putting a student in a classroom all day doesn't help the student. And I'm telling you that. I'm telling you this. So if your child is in EBD right now, I need you to ask tomorrow at school, is he self-contained? If he's self-contained, speak to whoever you need to speak to, ask for a meeting and see what can be done in regards to finding a less restrictive form of services. So your child may need that support for some behavior concerns, but don't let them put that young man in a self-contained class all day. I'm telling you, don't let nobody do that to your child. And remember, you have rights as a parent, no matter what anyone says. Public education is free for the moment. So, utilize your rights, Make the decision, best for your child. Don't let people talk you into doing something for your child that your heart and your gut is telling you is not right. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful for you at the Real Counselor's Corner. I'm here for y'all, parent advocate, #1 youth advocate for the children, and we trying to make some changes. So follow me at the Real Counselor's Corner. Remember, Owensboro, Kentucky, 9/11, 10 a.m., 1 p.m. We starting the Let's Build series part 1. Come check me out, and we gonna make this thing happen. But I need y'all to do it. So keep sending prayers up for your boy. Positive energy. We're gonna make this happen. Peace.